Okay, class, this is our introduction to halftones. If you've ever seen a dollar bill, or a $5 bill, a $10 bill for that matter, you'll see that if you look up close at George Washington's face, the values in his face that go from dark to light gray to medium to light gray are done with tiny little lines. Here's George Washington up close, and you can see on his cheek the lines are very concentrated and close up, and here the lines become further apart. They use a series of lines. Here the lines are following the contours of hair. Here they're following the contours of his head. Okay? You see the same thing in a $100 bill and a $5 bill and so on. If you look at Benjamin Franklin up close, you can see that his face is made with a series of tiny little lines and dots. Okay? Now this was done because when you printed money, they used to do something called lithography, where they would take a metal plate and they'd scratch little grooves on there. Then they'd put ink in those grooves and they'd push that into paper, and all that ink would transfer into the paper, and they could reproduce many of these. So if they wanted to have a reproduction of a person that had value in them, like Benjamin Franklin has, they would have to do it in tiny little lines and dots. Those are called halftones. Now halftones, there's a lot of different techniques. If you look up here, just a series of techniques. Here we've got little dots, here we got little dashes. So all kinds of techniques can produce halftones, and usually we choose a technique that best suits our subject, okay? Here's a halftone that's done on the computer. It's done with nothing but dots. You can see here the dots are far apart, and you can see a lot of white paper. The dots are far apart and they're small. Here the dots get larger and there's less and less paper. So halftone means this. You've got two colors, in this case black, and you got white. And when there's more paper showing, it's lighter. When there's less paper showing, it's darker. So your halftone is called what's called a visual blend. You're not taking your pencil and producing gray. You're taking ink and you're producing gray by having a little bit of the paper show through, either with dots or lines or some other technique. Here's a woodcut from a 15th century artist, Albrecht Dürer, and they would cut this out of wood, and you can see his use of halftones in his drawing. So if you look up close, like on the leg of this person, you can see he's got a series of lines creating sort of a gray area. Here the lines become very condensed, where it becomes very black. So he was using lines to create his images, and then halftones to create these light and dark areas. Okay? Here's another painting by Albrecht Dürer, or a woodcut. This is of a rhinoceros, and the rhinoceros looks funny. This was his drawing that he did from a description of a rhinoceros. They didn't have photography in those days, and people didn't travel that easily. So a rhinoceros was an exotic animal to him, and he did this rendering of a rhinoceros. Now here's some drawings that are from the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal is a national newspaper that likes to have artists produce these portraits that are done in halftones. So here, I'm not sure who this is, but what do you call him? Arnold Schwarzenegger. You can see his face is done with dots. Here's Barack Obama, and you can really see up close how they use dots to create all the different values on his face. Look at that. So an artist would do a drawing, probably in pencil first, then they use their pen to create these values. Here's Curly from the Three Stooges. Here's Spencer Tracy, a famous actor from back in the 50s. Not sure who this is. Now, this is using dots, but the dots are very tiny. You can see they're very, very, very tiny dots. Something called a rapidograph. All a rapidograph is a pen that has a really small tip. Here's a drawing that a student of mine did. I should move this out of the way. But she did this drawing. I love this turtle that she did. But if you look up close, look at the halftones or values that she did. So that's this part right here. And there it is up close. So she does these. I love her drawings. I just love them. Let's move this to the back. Let's move this one over. Isn't that cool? So she liked using a pen to create her drawings. Here is, let's click off of this. Okay. So here it is. Here's a drawing done by somebody, done with nothing but a pen, using halftones to create the dark and light areas. Here's an artist named Roy Lichtenstein, and what he would do was he would do these like almost comic book drawings, and here he uses halftones of dots to create different grays on this cartoon character. Here he uses what we call a visual blend of color. So here, you look at the girl on the left here, her face is pink and her lips are a darker pink, and then this is red. So when he did this, he really only used yellow, blue, black, and red. But here the red is used really condensed with a lot of dots. Here the dots are very far apart. And then the eyes, there's a little bit of blue. And here's a close-up, not the same one, but you can see that what it would look like if you zoom in up close. Just a few little dots of blue from far away, you get a visual blend. So a physical blend is when you take two colors, you might take yellow and red and actually mix them together and you get orange. A visual blend, you might take yellow and place it over the top of red, creating an orange. Now here's some examples of some visual blends that were done in color. This obviously goes from a light green to a very dark green. You can see how they use dots. Here we've got yellow dots, a yellow background with little red dots over the top, and then the yellow dots start working their way into the red. So we have this look like it goes from red to orange from yellow, but it really is just red and yellow producing that orange. So that's called a visual blend, okay? Illustrators love using halftones. This is a Maurice Sendak, probably seen this book, Where the Wild Things Are, and what he would do is do his drawings, then he would lay watercolors down or color, and then he would take his halftones over the top, and you can see like on the monster's face, so it's like a light sort of a skin color, and then it starts becoming darker, but he produces heavier and heavier lines to produce those halftones, okay? So we're gonna have an assignment on you working on halftones, but this was the introduction.